So we left former video with decent body sculpting. Proportions are not perfect, but it's quite readable and the silhouette looks decent, let's say, even if there are, again, some trouble. We'll now go for sculpting the end. So I will create a cube, apply a subdivision modifier, go into sculpt mode, and I will try to rapidly shape the end using the move brush. So I tend to create two curves that I will show you in a few seconds. I prefer to sculpt the end separately from the body for rotation's sake and occlusion. That's way easier, and then we'll be able to place it on the 3D model more easily. So I try to get this profile for the end. You can see this shape broken, and also on the front the thumb is not pointing from the side but it's getting down. So these are the two landmarks that are very important. Your fingers and their joint, they are making a nice curve. They are not perfectly aligned, and this is what I've tried to achieve with the base shape. Now what I will do, I will just rapidly flesh the inside of the end, so that's pretty easy using the dynamic topology. And this will help us having our main landmarks to place the finger and have something more believable and more easy to read for us to sculpt. Back in object mode, I will add a sphere, then a cylinder, and I will achieve like a base mesh for the finger, as we did for the limbs and for the whole body in the very beginning of the first chapter. So I will just add those elements, and then I will Boolean union them together and duplicate them to have my three main fingers. Later on, I will be joining them using also the Boolean to the end and smooth the joint and start sculpting it. To do so, I select every single object, go in the Sculpt Tool add-on menu and click Union. And now I have a single object. And when I go into Sculpt mode and activate the dynamic topology, I should be able to smooth the joint and have a nice result and start working on this finger. With this first finger smoothed, I will switch to object mode, and pressing Alt D, I will make clone duplication of the first finger and try to place them to get the curves we talked about before. I can tweak the position to get a better result, and then go back to sculpt mode on the main end part and rework the proportions before diving into sculpting the fingers. So watch your end and watch the reference. That's the better way to achieve good proportions. So I can now start sculpting the finger with the right resolution. What I do is that I set bones shape, and I do it like very drastically with a caricature effect, something very exaggerated, and then I will dig on the outside of these bones. I will do the same on every joint here. And when I will smooth this out, it will give the finger a very good shape to start with. And I will do quite the same thing on the outside, but here it's about fleshing our finger. So what I do is I carve the joint and then I flesh out the muscle very rapidly, just trying to give them a square shape, not something too rounded, because this is a problem that often occur when sculpting figures. They get like sausages, so I try to to start with squarish shapes to avoid this. Now I can pull out the nails, so our character doesn't have current nails. It's like his skin is getting harder on the tip of his finger, and I wanted to keep this kind of effect, where we don't have a real nail, but the skin is slowly getting like bony material. As I've cloned the first finger we are working on before, as soon as I will exit sculpting mode, the other two fingers will inherit the same geometry. They will kept their global transformation because we have scaled them, we have given them some rotation to place them correctly, but that's it. I have my free finger with a base sculpt, so now I can make a Boolean union using the sculpt tool and go for fleshing the whole hand. So what I do as before is that I exaggerate placing some tendons and bone, and then I will smooth this. I will also carve between the fingers, and then add some flesh and revise a little bit the proportions of the end. When geometry is a bit too dense, that's complicated to go into edit mode to make any rotation. So we can use the rotation brush. As I told you before, I don't really like it, but sometimes it's necessary. So what I do is that I mask the finger and work only on the knuckle I'm interested in. And the rotation brush working this way, the center of the brush is the pivot point, and the size of the brush is the area of rotation. And then whenever you brush from left or from right, it will rotate in one direction or the other. As I figured I will have to do this modification on the other fingers, and as I'm a lazy boy, what I will do is that I will create this cube and Boolean to remove those the other two fingers. So I just rapidly sculpt a cube and then use the difference in the sculpt tool add-on. And in the same way, I will add a new cube, subdivide it, place it, and make an intersection operation with the sculpt tool add-on to get a new finger, so that I will be able to duplicate and place on my hand. So just don't forget to duplicate the end before, as the intersection will only let you with the result of the Boolean operation. Then we'll be able to make a Boolean union, rapidly smooth the joint, and it appears that I had a little bug because the union didn't work perfectly. It doesn't really matter. I can see the end, I can see the finger position, and that's enough for retopology later on. For the thumb, I decided to use the snake hook brush. So it's like the grab brush, but this one will generate geometry while you are pulling on your clay. So that's a better way to generate limbs. I don't like it very much because it's pretty hard to handle, but for one finger that is isolated, that's fine. Then I will apply exactly the same method as before, first creating bones, then fleshing everything, and trying to have like hard shape, not getting sausagey shapes for my finger. Once we are done with this base sculpting, we will be able to get back in object mode and revise place our hand on our body. So I'm just revising slightly the position of the bone and making some useless refinement here. That's just to get more convinced that my hand is decent. Again, there are some mistakes, but that's fine. I can now move my hand on the same layer as the body, place it near the forearm, and what I will do is that I will change the center of rotation of the hand by changing its origin point. I just put the 3D cursor on the joint of the hand, press Ctrl Alt Shift C, and set the origin to 3D cursor. Then I only have to place the hand and rotate it correctly, add a mirror modifier, and source our sculpted body as the pivot point for the mirror.